Modding in Mount & Blade. In Warband, it was one of the most popular things and really the reason that the series is as big as it is to this day. We might not even have Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord if it wasn't for the success of all the mods in Warband, whether that was single player ones like A Song of Ice and Fire, Clash of Kings, Blood in the West, or even moving into the multiplayer era, having the Mount & Musket mod that then went on to have a full standalone DLC with Napoloenic Wars, North and South, Bear Force 2, Mount and Gladius. I think most of the people watching this video that have played the Mount & Blade games in the past will have really got into it because they've either played mods or they've seen mods and thought that's what I want to do. And personally, that's how I discovered the game. But Bannerlord's modding scene has been, well, it's been a bit of an interesting one, somewhat polarizing. You see, upon release we came into early access, and with early access, I mean, we get the game, but we don't get the full game. It brings us what we can expect from a single player experience, but there are loads of things that were left out. Whether that was a bit more content with new scenes, new mechanics and things that you could do to interact with the NPCs around the single player world of Calradia, or whether that was more behind the scenes, going into more of the modding tools, the coding, and how you can actually manipulate and change your gameplay. But despite this, we still got mods for the single player. Even in the beta versions, there was mods that were coming out for Bannerlord, whether these were balances and tweaks, or even some new skins, some completely new mechanics. And moving on to something like Bannerlord Online that came out a few months ago, bringing in multiplayer to the single player game, and that is still incredibly successful to this day. But there's been some slow down. I've noticed that a lot of the mods seem to be putting the brakes on at the moment, and they all seem to be doing it for the same reason. Recently, TALEWORLDS came out with a new blog talking about the future plans and what they're expecting to do in the near or later timeline for Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord's development. Whether that's bringing in some cool new game modes, whether that's the battle terrain system that we've all been waiting for, or especially whether that is full modding tools, not just for single player but for multiplayer as well. And this is what this video is centered around. I made a full video explaining the best bits and highlights of that future plans dev blog a while ago, so make sure you go and check out that video. There'll be a linked card right above. But in total, it finished off talking about modding tools. It's bringing in a few more things for the modders, but then it held off, saying that custom server files wouldn't be given out just yet. If anyone doesn't know, custom server files are what you need in order to make a multiplayer mod. Of course, Bannerlord has multiplayer, but no one really cares about it at the moment. It doesn't have anything of real content, at least not to any extent like Warband did. That had massive community events which really blew the game up to the size that it is to this day. But Bannerlord never came out with that. Initially, they did say that they'd bring out the custom servers on the full release, but now we've had some hints of the full release of Q2 of 2022, and still TALEWORLDS have mentioned that the server files still probably won't be out by that point. So of course, it was time. It was time for the modders to come together. There are full modding tools working on overhaul mods for Mount & Blade at this point in time, and we've seen so many being teased. I've also covered a few myself, whether it's a full Napoloenic Wars overhaul, whether it is true co-op for Bannerlord, or even something like a Star Wars or a Lord of the Rings mod. They are being worked on and have massive teams with tens, even hundreds of people working on it at these points in times. I'll let you into a little sweet fact. I'm actually doing some voice acting for a few of them, and it's all going quite well. But as I mentioned, the modding development for Bannerlord has sort of slowed down a bit and almost come to a full halt. Not many things are being uploaded to Nexus Mods or ModDB. There aren't as many things that you can download in order to alter your game, and this is why. Because of the tools that have been given so far. Some of the biggest modding teams have come together to write a letter to TALEWORLDS to tell them about the issues, to tell them what needs to be done in order for them to continue the growth in the development of the mods, and why there's a little bit of anger in the community at the moment towards what's being developed from the TALEWORLDS side to what can be done from the Mount & Blade modding teams. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't their first time writing letters, and to be fair at this point, I don't think this second one was all that necessary, but I'm going to cover it anyway. This mostly regards to the total conversion mods. You know, ones like Full Invasion 3, a new Persistent World mod, co-op, and so many more. I mean, there's a massive list. Things like Sword and Musket, which is the Napoloenic Wars one. You have the Kingdoms of Atlantia. You have the Mount & Warcraft Reborn, the 100 Years War, Eagle Rising, Viking Storm. There's so many modding teams that have signed this that really want this to be sorted out. And I have read through the letter, and it is quite interesting. They've mentioned that the main problems is they can do what they need to in custom battles, whether it's sorting out troops, formations, or of course the assets. But the main thing for especially multiplayer mods is to get it to work in a multiplayer setting, to make new game modes, to put these new maps in and to check it works with all the mod files that they have. And unless they have the custom server files from TALEWORLDS, this can't be done. So I think you get the idea, right? TALEWORLDS are slowly releasing new content and new things into the game, and the modders are getting annoyed because it's not being released fast enough. And this is where I think the problem lies. You see, TALEWORLDS isn't a massive company. They're not a AAA company, and whilst they had such a big boom when they released Bannerlord, I don't think they really have the resources to keep pumping out new content, especially things as server files. I personally think, yes, maybe the multiplayer should have probably been focused on a bit sooner, because I know most of the people watching this will be like, why does anyone care about multiplayer? Well, the fact is they used to. Not anymore, but they used to. Warband's multiplayer community was bigger than you can ever imagine, but when Bannerlord came out, it just wasn't treated with the same amount of love, and therefore the multiplayer community went away. It exists in the shadows, lying dormant, waiting for something to happen, but at this current point in time, we don't really have anything of use that we can really latch onto. We can't have those custom servers and community battles and bringing in those mods. Imagine this. You have clone troopers firing from one side to another, clones versus droids in these community events. You have the siege of Helm's Deep, orcs fighting against soldiers of Gondor, all real players in community-led events. That was the sort of thing that was going on in Warband, and that just hasn't really happened in Bannerlord because of this issue. And I understand why the modders are frustrated. I understand why they're writing these letters, but I also don't blame TALEWORLDS. I think it's well within their right to focus on what they want to. They obviously don't put the priority on multiplayer at this point in time, and that's fine. I was frustrated at first, but I've sort of come to terms with it. I've sort of moved away from the game for that very reason, where it's not really the game that I was looking forward to playing, so I've gone off and done my own thing. I know it's frustrating that you really want to get your mods in the game, but I just don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, and I don't think a letter to TALEWORLDS is really going to help that. And I know this is probably not the video that most of the mod developers watching this wanted to hear, because they've all been messaging me saying, Resonant, you need to make a video having a go at TALEWORLDS, tell them they're doing everything wrong. And I would love to be able to play these multiplayer mods, and it's all that I've really been waiting for Bannerlord. I don't actually really care that much about the single player of the game, so the only thing that can really be done is wait. But there is a brighter side to this. Whilst TALEWORLDS aren't really giving the modding teams things that they can do, they have said that they are coming. And yes, it's going to take longer than most people have preferred, but it's better than not coming at all, right? I mean, these modding teams are doing fantastic work while they're waiting anyway. I've seen some of the stuff that's been going on. I even have some gameplay of some cool Napoloenic Wars line battles that I've been sent that I'm going to make a full video on, and I will be carrying on following them, because when they do come out, I will be playing them. But nothing can be done at this point in time. I think TALEWORLDS are very aware that this is what people are waiting for, but at the end of the day, single player seems like their priority, and it makes sense. Single player is bigger than multiplayer, and even someone like me that doesn't really care about single player will still acknowledge that it is the biggest part of the game, and it is one of the big reasons why it is so successful. Single player mods are still going ahead. They still have limitations, but they're still here. We've just had an amazing Seven Kingdoms mod for single player, and it is fantastic. We've had Bannerlord Online, the MMO version of the single player, which is doing amazingly. They even have combat in it, and they have clans forming, and it is brilliant. It's almost like Persistent World, but in the single player. I think things are definitely going to speed up now. People are going back into the TALEWORLDS office after COVID, as they mentioned in their future plans devlog, but I still think there's going to be some time to wait. As revealed before, Q2 of 2022, that's when we're getting the full release, and that's when I think we're going to see the biggest changes and the biggest amount of content coming into the game, whether that is full assets, game modes, or even some custom servers. But please let me know what you think. Do you think TALEWORLDS have failed the modding community? I know most of the modding teams that were writing this letter will probably agree that's what's happened, but I want to hear what the community thinks. People that aren't modders, people that are just casual consumers. Do you think TALEWORLDS have done the right thing by focusing on the single player, or do you think they should have given some more love to that multiplayer modding scene? Leave your comments down below, but leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, leave a dislike if you didn't. But until then, I will see you in the next one.